Okay guys, in this video I'm going to go over classes and objects, and it's probably the most important video in the whole class because when you write VBA code all you're doing is working with objects, and you need to know what an object is in order to understand what you're doing when you're writing VBA code. So an object is just an instance of a class, and what that means is that this the class comes before the object. You could think of it like this. A class is a blueprint for an object. And once you have the class, you can create an object. In the same way that if you're an architect, if you want this example, if you're an architect, you need to have some paper with the drawings and the specifications of a house in order to go out into the real world and purchase material and shovels and hammers to go build the house. You need to have a blueprint first. And that's all a class is. It's just a blueprint for an object. In the same way that an architect would have a blueprint for a house. So we have to write this blueprint. So let's get started by writing a class for a basketball team. Now I could have chosen anything. I could have chose to write a class for a building or a company or anything. You could pick anything and you could write a class for it, because all you're doing is writing a blueprint. And the blueprint is going to be composed of subprocedures and functions, which we already have seen. It's going to be composed of properties, and we know what properties are. They're just attributes of an object. So let's write a class for a basketball team. So I have my class module here, and I have a class in it. If you don't have that, if you deleted this, because we inserted this earlier in videos, go up here to insert and do insert class module. You should get something that looks like this, and then I go to the properties window and I could change the name of it. So I'm going to name this class basketball team. And once I have this class here called basketball team, I'm going to double click it, and now I can start defining my class, basically building the blueprint. Right? So let's build a blueprint. First thing I'm going to do is put option explicit at the top. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a very simple class. My blueprint for my basketball team is just going to be, it's just going to say that my basketball team needs to have a name. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to write a blueprint for my basketball team that says this team needs to have a name. So to do that, we are going to write some properties for this class. The first thing we're going to do is declare a variable called team name, and I'm going to do private. I'm going to, instead of using dim, I'm going to use the word private, because I don't want this variable, which I'm going to call team name here. I don't want this variable team name to be accessible outside of this class, so that's why I put the private in front of team name instead of using dim. And this is just a variable that's going to hold the name of our team. Once I have that, I want to write a property. So here's how you go about writing a property. Public property get name as string. And when you hit enter, look what happens. So there's a bunch of keywords out front: public, property, and get. And then the data type of the property. So here's our property name. It's going to hold the name of our basketball team. It is a string. It's a string. The data type is string. And the public says that it can be accessed outside of this class module. The property is just a keyword that tells Excel that it's a property of this class. And the get signifies that when you want to get the name of the team, this is the property you're going to use. And it's we'll see how straightforward this is when we access this property. But right now, all we need to do is do this. Name is equal to team name. So this is a property, and now we have a property called name, and it's a member of this basketball team class. We already have a class. We just created a class, and we could stop here, and we can look at what we can do with this already. I mean, this is a very short class. All we have is one property, and we could see what we can do already. So I'm going to insert a module, and I'm just going to name this module classes. And if I go into it, I could do a sub test classes. So now I have a sub procedure, and what I can do now is declare a declare an object, dim bb team, as basketball team. Notice what I want to do is I want to create an object of this class. So to do that, I just do dim bb team as, and then the drop down pops up, and because I just wrote this class, it pops up in the drop down. So I could double click it, and now I have declared that this variable here, bb team, is going to be of data type basketball team, and here's the basketball team. So this variable is going to have access to all the properties in here, and all the functions in here, and all the sub procedures in here. And like I said before, now we have a blueprint. We already have a blueprint. Our blueprint simply says we have a name for a basketball team. This is the blueprint, right? A name for the basketball team. But now we need an object to work with. In order to get the object to work with, you have to set bb team, this variable, equal to a new basketball team, like this. So this actually creates the object in the computer's memory. When this code runs, when it hits this line, this is going to what's called instantiate this object. So we have this line of code, which is really important. If you understand what's going on in this video, the most important line is probably this line of code, because what's happening is when you execute this, you are building a house. You're taking a blueprint. You're taking a blueprint here. Here's my blueprint, and I'm making it into an object in your computer's memory. So this instantiates the object. And what I mean instantiates, this becomes an instance of the class. That's what instantiates means. So how can we use this? We can just put a message box, and we could do bb team, and look what happens. So now when we have bb team, if I type bb team and put this dot here, I get this property. See that finger with the paper underneath? If I double click it, now I can display the name of the team in a message box. But what happened here is pretty cool. I wrote a blueprint for a basketball team that has a property in it for a name, and I can access that using this little dot here. This is called the dot operator, and you can access the members of a class. More specifically, you can access the properties of this object by using the dot operator. So whatever properties this object has, you just put the dot after the object, and then it'll pop up. The properties will pop up. And if you have functions, the function names will pop up. So now we can run this, and if we run this code, if I just hit enter, it's blank. Why is it blank? So it's blank because we haven't given the team a name, right? If I go back to my blueprint, you know, this property, it gets the name. This keyword here is taking whatever in this team name variable and assigning it to name, and then it's going to put it in the message box. But this team name variable never got populated. So to populate the team name variable, you need a different type of name, a different type of the name property called a let property. So all I did is I just changed the get to a let so that now I can assign something to the name property. So what I do now is do param underscore name as string, and I don't need to do this string anymore over here because this property is going to take a parameter and assign it to this team name variable. So what I do here is just do this. Team name is equal to param underscore name. Like this. So now I'm able to set the name of the team. Notice the only differences here are this property, they both have the same name. This property is called name, but it has two different versions. A version to get the name that just returns whatever's in this team name variable and puts it, you assign team name to the name of your property, because here's the name of our property, name. I'm assigning name whatever in team name. I also need a way to set the name of the team, and to do that I change the get to a let down here, and I added a parameter so that I can pass in something and then set the team name variable up here. So this sets the team name and this gets the team name. So if I go back to my module now, I should be able to do something like this. bbteam dot name is equal to Lakers. So now when I run, I'll just press F5, I get Lakers in a message box. So that is essentially what an object is and what a class is. And the critical points are, a class is a blueprint. You can put anything in a class. Mostly they're going to be properties, like we did here. They're going to be functions, which we already know what a function is, or subprocedures, or let's see. Well, yes, those are the main three: properties, functions, subprocedures. And then when you want to access the members of that class, the properties of an object or the functions of an object, you use this dot operator after you have declared it, right? So you declare your object like you would a variable, but now the data type is going to be the name of your class. And then you have to do this line, the most important line. You set the object to a new basketball team, and that actually creates the object in memory on your computer. Once you do that, you can access the properties using this dot operator, and you can set the property here, and then you can get the property here. So let's step through this real quick to see what's happening. So notice once I step through, at this point down here, BB team, it has two properties, name and team name. Because if I go back here, there's team name and there's name. And if I continue to step through, watch what happens. I'm using the let name property here, and param name is assigned to Lakers. Team name over here, team name is now Lakers. So this uses the let property. So I just want to make note of that this uses let, and this one's going to use get. So if I step through, this one uses the get one. And all this does is, now that team name is Lakers, it's going to return the name Lakers. So their name is set to Lakers. So their Lakers shows up in a message box. So this is very similar to what you're going to be doing in VBA when you're writing VBA code. When you do something like this, application.name, you're doing the same type of thing, only you don't have to write the application class, right? You don't have to write the property of name. So if you just do a message box msgbox, if you just write this line, there's all kinds of code that you didn't write that look very similar to the code that we just wrote, but we didn't have to write any of it. Microsoft already wrote it, and that's why VBA is so powerful, because Microsoft has written all this code, all these classes with all these properties and all these, functions and sub-procedures in these classes that allows you to just access them using this dot operator. And once you access them, you pretty much can do anything you want with Excel. And let's just run this. And now I get Lakers and I get Microsoft Excel. But I didn't write any of this. I didn't write the code that that has a name property of the application. And what this line is doing here, if you're not familiar, this is an application object. In the same way that this is a basketball object, this is an application object that has a name property, in the same way that our basketball team object has a name property. But notice this took just less than 20 characters, whereas what I had to do took a lot of time, a lot of effort. I had to know the syntax and all this stuff. That's why you're not going to write classes very frequently. You're just going to access properties and sub-procedures and functions of objects that already exist. And those objects come from classes that are already written. There's hundreds and hundreds of classes that are already written that have properties in them, functions in them, sub-procedures, events, and you don't have to write any of this stuff. So this video is really important because you get to see sort of what's going on when you write VBA code. Here's some VBA code that you would maybe write, and what's really happening behind the scenes is that some Microsoft developer wrote something that looks more like this. And the great part about VBA is that you don't need to write this class or these classes, because 99.9% of the time all you're going to be doing is accessing using this dot operator to access properties and sub-procedures and functions of objects. So you're going to be using objects that are already created. You don't have to create classes 99% of the time. So hopefully that's an introduction to what an object is and what a class is. The main takeaways are VBA is so powerful because you don't have to write these things. I put this video up because it's important to see what a class is and what an object is. But it's more important to know that you don't have to write these. They're already written and you're just working with the finished product. The finished product is objects. And you're going to be working with objects and using dot operator and accessing the properties and functions and sub-procedures of those objects. So that's it for this video. In the next video, I will show you where you can see all those hundreds of classes and all those thousands of properties and thousands of sub-procedures and all this stuff. And then we can really get cooking in this class because now all you're going to be doing is accessing, finding out which object you want to use and using this property or that function or this sub procedure, and it becomes real easy, real straightforward. So the next video I'll show you where the hundreds of classes are with, we have one property here, but what you get with VBA is hundreds of classes and thousands of properties and thousands of sub procedures in those classes, and we'll look at that in the next video.